All right. So, excuse me. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thursday evenings, we go through, there are 4 different bodies of work that I work through on Thursday evenings in some kind of rotation. This evening, so roughly once a month, is a book of poems, which is The Gateless Parent. The translation I'm using is Shibayama. For those not familiar with koans, these actually come out of China originally, China and Korea. They are pithy stories, little exchanges between Zen masters, and in those exchanges, there's glimpses of the awakened mind in these exchanges. And the idea is by sitting with this koan, this can be a vehicle that helps us, the person working with koan, ourselves get a glimpse of that awakened mind. So in reading and studying these, that's the lens through which we look at them. In the Rinzai Zen tradition, they're taken into a sitting practice with them, like we would with metta practice or something. We just sit with the koan for days, weeks, months, for long periods of time. So this one is number 22 out of the Mumonkan. I will just read through the koan, the commentary, and the poem. So the koan is the exchange, and then the person who assembled these back in medieval China wrote a commentary and then a poem to kind of explain it a little bit, to offer some guidance. Explain is wrong, but to offer some guidance and some help. So the koan. Ananda once said to Kasho, "The world-honored one transmitted to you the brocade rope. What else did he transmit to you?" Kasho called out, "Ananda." Ananda answered, "Yes, sir." Kasho said, "Pull down the flagpole at the gate." So the commentary. If you can give the exact turning word to this koan, you will see that the meeting at Mount Grittakuta is definitely present here. If not, then know that Vipassana Buddha is still unable to get the truth, even though he began his seeking in remote antiquity. And the poem. The calling out is good, but even better the answering. How many are there who have opened their true eyes? The elder brother calling out, the younger brother replying. The family's shame is revealed. This is the spring that does not belong to yin and yang. Okay, so as I read it again and talk about it, some of this is going to be sort of translating the cultural and temporal language that we're using, and some of it's going to be pushing into, so what are they actually trying to communicate? So Ananda once said to Kasha, I think it's number 6 in this collection. Yeah, number 6 is Shakyamuni holds up a flower. In the Zen tradition, the story is that on Mount Grittakuta, which is also a vulture peak, is how it's usually translated. It's near, I can't even remember the names of the places. I was just there a few days ago. Sravasti. It's near Sravasti. No, it's not actually. It's near.
Varanasi?
No. It's the southeast.
Vaishali?
Begins with that. It doesn't matter. We'll come to it later.
Rajgir.
Yes, thank you. Anyway, it's this really grand, really a big hill. It's rather grand to call it a mountain, but it's rather dramatic, and there's lots of rocky bits on top and an overlook. It's very dramatic. So the story is that Buddha was sitting with an assembled bunch of monastics, and he held up a flower. And Mahakashapa, who was the disciple who became the leading disciple after Buddha's death, smiled. Buddha said, "You have the true Dharma eye, and your eye is awakened, and basically you get it. You get it." So that's called and that's transmission. What was happening there was Buddha was seeing, in Kashapa's response to him holding up the flower, Buddha was seeing, this guy has woken up. This guy is also seeing reality as it is. He's escaped this ignorance and delusion, which keeps us cycling around in samsara, and he is seeing things as it is, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say. And there's this lineage in Zen that starts there of a master and a disciple, a master working with a disciple. And when that person wakes up, when they really bottom drops out, they see clearly. But that, of course, means the awakened one waking up from this dream. Just like we woke up from our dreams this morning, wake up from this dream to reality. Then this thing called transmission occurs. It's like this teaching permission, this leadership permission is handed on. So Ananda once said to Kasho, the world under one transmitted to you the brocade rope. The brocade rope could be the robe, it could be the sash around the robe, it doesn't matter. It's an object, which is kind of a symbol, it's an artifact. It's like getting your sergeant stripes or your graduation certificate. It's a symbol of this transmission, symbol of this awakening. What else did he transmit to you? And Ananda was the Buddha's cousin and his attendant for 20 or 30 years. He's the person, when you read a sutra, that says, this have I heard. Buddha, Ananda is the one who's saying, thus have I heard, because he was there present with Buddha for all of his sermons. Thus have I heard, and off he goes. And he had a prodigious memory. But he was not an arhat. He had not awoken at the time the Buddha died. Kashyapa had. So this is the story here of Kashyapa transmitting to Ananda. So Ananda waking up, and Kashyapa saying, you get it. So Ananda once said to Kashyapa, the world under one transmitted to you the brocade robe. What else did he transmit to you? Kashyapa called out, Ananda. Ananda answered, yes, sir. So there's this call and response. And this is a trope that shows up as well. And there's this, if you, there's this idea that it's a really lovely idea of a teacher asks the student a question, and the student reflects, and just as the student's about to answer, the teacher holds out their hand, puts it over the student's mouth. So it's just in that moment where something is starting to be formed, but it hasn't yet formed. The speech is starting to come together, but it hasn't yet come together. There's that moment of spontaneity, that moment of in between nothingness and somethingness. And this call and response goes to that. It's a spontaneous response. Kashyapa just in response, Kashyapa just says, Ananda, just comes out of nowhere. It's a spontaneous call. And Ananda, without reflecting, in response says, yes, sir. It's just utterly spontaneous. And it's very clean and pure. That's the idea. It's very clean and pure. It's without thought. Kashyapa says, pull down the flagpole at the gate. In that earlier story where Buddha was holding up a flower, was he teaching? Wasn't he teaching? There's kind of a sermon, a wordless sermon. And for a sermon, there's a tradition that a flag would be raised to indicate the sermon's happening. When it's over, the flag's taken down. So the pull down the flagpole at the gate is, we're done. It's not even taking down the flag, it's taking down the whole pole. We are done here. You got it, dude. So I'm going to come back and talk about that a little bit more after we've gone through, as we go through the rest of this. We're not done with that yet. So the commentary, if you can give the exact turning word to this code, the exact turning word, a turning word in this language is the teacher understanding exactly where the student is, where the student's mind is, and saying something that just tweaks it just enough. So a lot of these are actually actions. So some of them quite violent actions. So somebody will try and hold the door open and the teacher slams the door on their foot. Or another one is teacher sitting with student, the geese are flying overhead. They fly over the top of the hills and they're gone. And the teacher asks the student, where did the geese go? And the student says something, and the teacher just tweaks their nose, because they're not gone. They were never there in the first place, and they've not gone. The goose is just a perception. So the turning word is this, the teacher just saying something. If you can give the exact turning word, you will see that the meeting at Vulture Peak, which is the meeting with Buddha and Mahakashapa, where Buddha held up the flag, that meeting is still present. It's definitely present here. That sermon of the Buddha is still going on. If not, then know that Vipassana Buddha is still unable to get to the truth. Vipassana Buddha, there were seven historic Buddhas. Buddha, the Shakyamuni Buddha is number 7. Vipassana Buddha was the first, way back, times of antiquity. So Vipassana Buddha is still unable to get to the truth, even though he began his seeking in remote antiquity. Something that goes to the same point is if you say that, actually wrote this down, where is it? That's right. If you do not understand, you say you do not understand, then Buddha was giving a secret talk. But if you do understand, then Kassapa was not hiding. If you don't understand what was going on between Buddha and Kassapa was secret, was private. But if you do understand it, then Kassapa is just laying it bare for the world to see. So there's this, is it secret, is it private? It's actually, Buddha's teaching was entirely public. There's nothing esoteric in Buddha's teaching. It's entirely in the open. He's very clear about this. But sometimes it's just difficult to see it. It looks like it's secret, but it's actually not. And there's a, understanding is the booby prize. Something out of my British tradition. Understanding, if you understand something, that's less than you really want. Understanding's up here. What we want is down here. So trying to understand this intellectually doesn't get us there. But if we really get it, then it's like, oh, and things shift. We can see things more clearly. Can you explain being in love to me? You can't understand that. Explain the sunset over the Grand Canyon. You don't understand. It's just amazing. And when you see it, you know. So that's what this is really pointing at here. And the calling out is good, but even better, the answering. This is about the exchange between Kassapa and Ananda. In a sense, Kassapa is actually calling out. So the awakening is about seeing that there is no separation. To say all is one is not right. It's not that everything is one, because there is distinction. There is, I mean, we're here, we're in this world of stuff, but there is actually no separation. Separation is something we do where we cut ourselves off. We say there's a me that's actually separate from. The me is there with everything else. We cut it off. So the awakening is the complete loss of separation. So my left hand and my right hand. If my left hand gets stuck somewhere, if it hurts, if something hits it, my right hand helps it without questioning. It doesn't think, that's my left hand. What's the left hand done for me lately? It's just no separation. It's just intuitive and natural engagement and response. So waking up is like that. Waking up is pointing at that on this bigger scale. So the calling out is good. The calling out is Kassapa. In a sense, Kassapa, he's awake. He doesn't see any difference between Kassapa and Ananda. Kassapa is calling out to Kassapa. Transmission, what's being transmitted? Transmission is this idea of something happening between the master and the student. To say that there is actually something transmitted is not quite right. But to say that nothing is transmitted is also not quite right. There's something going on between the master and the student. There's a recognition, there's an acknowledgement. There's a recognition, that says in the one of my favorite parts of this whole book is the introduction, or the commentary on the first, which is Joshua's move. Now tell me, what is the barrier of the Zen master? Just this move, just this koan. It is thus called the gateless barrier of Zen, which is Mumonkan. Those who have passed the barrier will not only see Joshua clearly, but will go hand in hand with all the, Joshua is the protagonist of this koan, but will go hand in hand with all the masters of the past, see them face to face. You will see with the same eye that they see with and hear with the same ear. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Don't you want to pass through that barrier? That's what this is pointing at, what this transmission is about. It's the two have the same mind. The two are expressions of the same mind, the master and the student. So Kashyapa is in this place of non-separation. He doesn't have any experience of difference, separation between his mind and Ananda's mind. Kashyapa was calling out to Kashyapa. And in this spontaneous response, because Ananda replies to Ananda. Same thing. So it's the calling out is good. But even better is the answering. The answering is when, in that spontaneous moment, Ananda just, oh, he is Kashyapa, he is everything. How many are there who have opened their true eyes? This is about opening our true eyes. The elder brother calling out, the younger brother replying, the family shame is revealed. There's a lot of backhanded stuff goes on in Zen language here. But the family shame is that which has usually been kept secret, that which has usually been kept quiet. Well, in this case, it's the awakened mind. It's not being kept secret by design. It's being kept secret because we just don't see it. It's our birthright, but we just don't see it. The elder brother calling out, Kashyapa, the younger brother, Ananda replying, the family shame, awakened mind itself is revealed. Awakened mind is revealed when you're walking along the street and you see a child who's just suddenly in some kind of trouble, and you don't think, you just respond, you just help. This is awakened mind just spontaneously acting. This is the spring that does not belong to yin and yang. Yin and yang symbolize change. Spring is this awakening, but it's an awakening that doesn't change. It's an awakening that just happens and happens and happens because it's not bound up with yin and yang. So we come back to the koan. Ananda once said to Kasha, and Ananda, so if you go back, Ananda said to Kasha, the world-honored one transmitted to you the brocade robe. He's not getting it. I studied with this guy for 30 years. I was his attendant. I was with him through all the thicks and thins, through everything he taught. I heard everything he taught everybody else. I saw him express turning words and wake other people, give people what they needed to wake up. I was with him when he died, the whole story around his death. I just didn't get it. My life is so much better than it was. He's amazing, but I'm not seeing clearly. He gave you this certificate. You see clearly. Why? And it's desperate. Just imagine this guy. This has been his whole life. He is desperate. Why? What happened? What is this transmission? What else did he transmit you? What is the jewel here? What is it that I'm missing? And Kasha called out Ananda. That was it. Ananda? It's calling out. This is the awakened mind calling out to awakened mind. Does awakened mind hear it? Ananda? And in that moment, that cut through Ananda's ego, just cut through it completely. And there was just this response that came from deep. It came from awakened mind itself. And Kasha recognized that was what was happening. The response was, yes, sir. It wasn't an intellectualized response. It was absolutely intuitive. Ananda, yes, sir. Oh, I get it. That just happened, didn't it? Oh my goodness. So, yeah, that's that. I've just been talking for quite a while, so I will stop recording.